Move it outside, please. With that, we're moving on to item number 20, our STIP guidelines process update. Laurel Jansen.
Yes, Commissioners, this is an information item. At the May CTC meeting, staff outlined steps to begin the 2016 STIP guidelines process, including workshops to be held this summer. The first workshop was held on June 11th. Was very well attended with over 80 people attending in person and on the phone. We received very good input from regional agencies and advocates and assorted other people who attended. We did come up with some generally agreed upon suggestions, including simplifying and using mode-neutral performance measures and clarifying the goals and objectives to be achieved with the STIP programming. This workshop summary is posted on our website under the programs, under the STIP section of the programs. And as we get further comments on the STIP guidelines process, we will be posting those in that same location. The next workshop, which will be focused on transparency and public input to the STIP programming process, will be held in Los Angeles on July 16th at LA Metro, and I want to thank LA Metro for offering us the space. The third workshop will be held after our August meeting in San Jose. We'll hold that on the 21st. We are still working out the details, but we hope to be in the City Hall. As stated at the May meeting, our intent is to bring a rough draft of the guidelines to the Commission at the October meeting. And no doubt we'll have additional changes after that, but that will be our first draft. Any questions?
Laurel, thank you. Questions of Laurel Jansen? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 21, construction contract dispute resolution process. Stephen, are you leading this conversation?
Yes, Commissioners. At the May Commission meeting, there were some questions raised about contract dispute resolutions, and the department does have a very robust process for dispute resolution, and Mark Legia, Division Chief of Construction, is here to give you the 101. The Construction Resolution Programming 101.
Mark, thank you for joining us today. And is Bijan with you as well?
He is here. He's not going to come up at
there
first.
He is.
He'll come
Good.
up if you have any questions.
He is safely in the back row, Mark. Take it away.
He's got my back.
Thank
All right,
you.
good afternoon,
Welcome to you both.
I thought it was the other way around.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be here and talk with you a little bit about our construction claims process that we use at Caltrans. I'm Mark Legia. I'm the Chief of Construction, and I'm here to provide you some information about a very elaborate process we use to try to resolve disputes and claims at the earliest possible moment that they might arise. And so what I hope to cover today is to share with you some impacts of claims and disputes, some being obvious, some being less obvious. And but I think you'll find it to be insightful to know why we use such an elaborate process to resolve disputes and claims, because we want to try to avoid those consequences from occurring. I'm also going to spend quite a bit of time talking about the claims resolution process that we've developed over many years of administering construction projects in an attempt to try to educate you on the steps we go through. And then briefly a quick status of the construction program and highlighting some of the elements that I mentioned in the claims process. And I want to wrap up with some good news, as I heard earlier, that's desirable, and I have a couple of performance indicators about our claims process that you might find useful and interesting, and they are part of a very extensive set of performance indicators that we use to keep track of our construction program activity. So that's what I plan to cover today, and hopefully there'll be plenty of time for any questions that you might have. So some of the impacts that happen from disputes and claims, the obvious ones are that you can have a delay to your project schedule. You can have an increase in capital cost. That's another potential consequence. You can have an increase in support cost on a project. If it takes longer to resolve a dispute, you can certainly increase the amount of support costs that are necessary to finally complete the project. A few less obvious impacts from construction disputes would be that in the future we may have an increase in our bid prices. Contractors are experts at identifying risk and incorporating it into their bids. And if they sense that there are risks that need to be factored in, then they will raise bid prices. And if they have a history of disputes and claims with a particular owner or agency, then they will incorporate those risks into their projects. Other things that can happen if they don't feel an owner or an agency is fair in the handling of disputes and claims, then they may choose not to bid at all. And there are significant consequences when we have a reduction in the number of bidders. The competition is less, and we ultimately end up paying more for our projects. And all of this can be contributed to when you have an increase in disputes or claims that happen on projects. And finally, another very important factor that we're concerned about is employee job satisfaction. This is not an easy business, building construction projects. It takes a lot of years of expertise to be developed, a lot of training, a lot of on-the-job training to figure out how to build jobs and do so effectively. We don't want the people who are doing that to be discouraged through daily disputes and arguments with contractors. If they get fed up with that particular repetitive activity, then they may find something else to do. And we may lose or not be able to retain some of our most highly experienced and important staff. So those are some of the less obvious consequences by having an environment of disputes and claims. And so we try to find ways to eliminate those as early as possible and at the lowest possible level. The claims resolution process has really three very distinctive phases. They have different people that are involved with them, and they happen at different times within the life of a project. The first phase we call our dispute resolution phase, and that happens when the project is ongoing. Construction is actively being pursued, the work is being built, and the opportunity for resolution is at its height. You can take care of the issue as it comes up, and we call issues that come up there the disputes that we try to resolve quickly. If we're not able to finish it at that point, then it moves into what we refer to as our claims resolution phase, and this happens after construction. And by the Public Contract Code, we have 240 days to resolve those administratively handled claims. And I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on that later. If we are not able to resolve it by the end of that time
Forgive me,
period,
I think there may already be a question or a comment for you.
sure,
I was just going to
absolutely.
say, are we, and I'll let you finish
Sure.
your report, but should we ask questions as we go, or should we just write them down and wait until the
I am
report is
open
over?
for either, whichever you prefer.
Why don't we make it a dialogue rather than a monologue then, and if it's okay with you, and if
Absolutely.
it doesn't throw you off, we'll take questions as we go if they're burning questions. Yes, please, Commissioner Alvarado.
Well, yeah, my question is, I'm looking at this from claim day 0 to claim day 240. That's almost a year.
Can be, yes,
And so, I mean, is there, and then you get to arbitration.
right.
So is there, what happens in this administrative process?
We'll actually have a detailed flow chart that's a little later on a couple more slides ahead that I
Okay.
can go through and explain that in some more detail. It is very well mapped out in our contracts and in our guidance and in our policy. So if you
And I guess-
indulge me, I'll get to it.
Okay, then, and then the question I have then in an administrative process, is there an expedited arbitration, or is there a party? I mean, you have two parties that have a dispute. One party says we don't have a dispute. The other party says, yes, we do. Somebody has to make a decision that, because I can't understand why it takes 240 days to get to arbitration.
Yeah, fortunately, often it does not, and those issues are resolved much quicker than that, and we have a couple of tools that we utilize to try to make that happen. But if we are unable to complete it within the 240 days, then arbitration is available to continue the attempt to try to resolve it.
Well, but if I'm a guy making payroll and renting equipment and buying supplies, and depending on the size of the claim, that's a long time to be hanging out there by your toenails.
It is, and we try our best to try to resolve it before we actually get there. We make quite a few attempts during the construction project to try to resolve it, to make the payments that are due. But if that's not possible, then we have some additional steps that we work through to try to get it resolved.
Okay, and then in your report, and I'll let you get moving here. In your report, is there an average, like in my workman's comp company, we have an average claim to close. Do you have that information in this report?
I don't know about the average number of days, but I do have the number of projects that are involved, and I can say that most of the projects that enter this phase finish before the 240 days, and that means we're able to resolve them relatively quickly.
Okay.
And again, if I don't answer your question later on, by all means, redirect me back onto it and we'll answer it. At this point, I wanted to make sure you understood the 3 different phases of the claims resolution process. The first one happens during construction. The second occurs after construction is completed, and then we try to resolve it at that point. And if we're not able to finish it then we move to what is binding arbitration, which I'm going to explain some of the details on that later. So let me start with when we're in construction. We have a number of tools and techniques that we put into our contracts to try to resolve disputes as they occur. If an issue is raised during construction, then we try to address that by increasing our communication with the contractor. We also put into place on all of our projects a dispute escalation ladder or dispute resolution ladder. And if you're not familiar with this particular tool, it's extremely valuable in resolving disputes quickly. It identifies the individuals on the project who are responsible to resolve a dispute within a given period of time. For example, the resident engineer and maybe the contractor's project superintendent are given a week or 5 days to resolve a dispute. If they're not able to do so, then an individual that they report to, higher in their organization, is drawn into the discussion. And that individual is identified at the beginning of the project. If they're not able to resolve the dispute, we have another elevated level that's identified in our projects. Most of the time, disputes are resolved at the very lowest level. Individuals work hard to try to avoid having to go to their boss and say, "Can you help me with this?" Which is essentially what happens. We put a dispute escalation ladder in all of our projects. We identify those individuals. It resolves a lot of disputes at the very early stages because 2 people are given the challenge to take care of an issue before it becomes a bigger problem. The other thing that goes on concurrently during the construction phase is the additional documentation that we need in order to resolve a dispute. We use a formal 3-step process where documentation is provided by the contractor. Initially, they provide supplemental information, and then at the end, they provide full and final information about the extent of the claim, what their costs are, what their impacts are, and how much they feel they should be compensated for this additional impact to their operation. We ask for that documentation because we need it in order to provide the compensation that may be justified. We don't always get to the end of the full and final documentation because we try to resolve it before we get there. We also have an alternative dispute resolution process that is in most of our projects, and that is when we draw in a neutral third party to help the contractor and the state staff resolve the dispute. If you haven't heard of these before, we have dispute resolution boards. These folks are 3 very experienced individuals that listen to the dispute and offer their non-binding opinion of how it could be resolved. And the dispute resolution boards are established on all projects greater than $10 million. On projects between $3 and $10 million, we use a dispute resolution advisor, which is the same group of people, but it's only one person. And that individual then listens to the dispute and provides the 2 parties an opportunity to resolve it. If they don't like what they heard, then they don't have to accept the recommendation, but it does set in motion the opportunity to resolve the dispute early on. And so we think this is a great tool. We've been using it for more than 20 years on our construction projects. It's very well established. It does set in motion the resolution of many issues. Should that not be successful during construction, we enter the claims resolution phase. This is after the project has been accepted. All of the work is finished. The work is completed. It's met the satisfaction of the contract, and the contract is now completed. However, there may be outstanding payments that the contractor feels they are due. And so during this period, we try to work through those, and they become formal administrative claims. What happens during this 240-day period, this is the flow chart I was referring to before, this is a very important step. Right after the project is finished, our resident engineers provide to the contractor their proposed final estimate. And this is the resident engineer, their estimate of how much additional funds are needed to finally close out the project. We send that to our contractors within 40 days. And if the contractor has any exceptions to the payment that we've suggested, they have 30 days in which to respond. Typically after this roughly 70-day period, we know very clearly where the disputes remain and where claims might need to be resolved. So this is really where the next opportunity is for finally resolving whatever claims are. It happens at about day 70. If they're not able to come to an agreement over the final compensation at this stage, then the districts will usually assign the claims that remain to a claims analyst. And this claims analyst staff will put together a claims report, and they will provide that to the deputy for construction in every district who has one of those, and they will make a recommendation on whether the claim should be denied, whether it should be accepted, or whether it should be partially accepted. It's at this point then that there's another opportunity for the claims, all the claims on the project to be resolved, because the deputy of construction now has an opportunity to weigh in and to resolve them. These are not new issues. They're often ones that came up during construction. They are often identified by the contractor during the response to the proposed final estimate. And now the deputy for construction has an opportunity yet again to weigh in and whether or not this is a claim that has merit and should be paid. If the deputy for construction feels they need additional advice on whether it's appropriate to make this payment, they can assemble what we refer to as a board of review. And the board of review is 3 experienced construction managers to help the deputy for construction with advice on whether this claim has merit. These construction managers come from other districts, and they are assembled to assist and to advise the deputy for construction on whether this claim should be resolved at this point. They take that advice, they make a recommendation, they then turn to the district director. You have a question?
Yeah. When you talk about the construction management, this is all internal. These are not external neutral parties.
Not yet. No. Not
and
yet.
We're at day 200.
We have involved the contractor clearly in the continuation of the dispute.
Yeah, but we got to the board of review report is issued, or the construction claim review, whatever. We're at day 200.
Right. It can use a board of review. Not all projects use a board of review.
But if we got a claim,
right.
Tell me, and we're at day 200.
Okay.
Okay. Continue.
Okay. It can take a while to refine the claims that a contractor has insisted that they be addressed, and it can take some time for analysis. The point I was trying to make by walking through this is there are a number of different eyes that review at different levels within the organization that provide advice ultimately to the district director. Within the 240-day time period, we expect the district director to receive a recommendation from their construction staff on whether the claims have merit and whether they should be accepted. Within that time period, then, the district director writes a letter. We call it our district director determination letter of claims, and that's where the final determination of those claims are made. It's after that letter is sent that the contractor has the opportunity to proceed on to arbitration if necessary. I was trying to get to that several people try to assist in the evaluation and whether there is merit in a claim, and at any point along that continuum, if there is merit in the claim, it can be resolved at that point.
Well, but my problem with this whole thing is there's a dispute here between the contractor and the department, right?
Sure.
As I go through this process and I'm watching the days add up, if the department just digs in, this guy can go as far as 330 working days now, not calendar days. These are working days.
No, these are calendar days.
These are calendar days.
Calendar days, yes.
Okay, well, we're still at 330. Okay, I'm in construction. The majority of my disputes have a 60-day binding arbitration, and we're done.
Right.
My contractor presents a brief, the owner presents a brief, they go to arbitration, and it's settled. 60 days. But I'm looking at this, and it's 330 days to get to file for binding arbitration with the Office of Administrative Hearings.
Right.
I just don't understand why a dispute, irregardless of how complex it is, should take a year to resolve.
Well, usually the ones that go through this length of the process are ones that we don't agree with.
Well,
And that's,
really?
Yes. And
well,
the good
that's
news,
interesting to know.
yeah, and the good news is that many do not.
Well, but see, I guess I'm just having a problem here because, this is a lot of money hanging out there. I mean, this is money that somebody could be used to put people to work or starting the next job. Obviously, before the job is closed out, it goes up against his bonding capacity. There's a whole lot of things going on, and we're dragging this thing out for a year.
Right.
And I guess, obviously, I'm going to ask you to come back with, because I know of two, of how many people went broke before this year of getting to final arbitration was reached.
Okay. Let me show you what happens in arbitration, and I'll get to some performance indicators that might also answer some of your question. So if we're unable to resolve it during the administrative claims process, then the contractor can file for arbitration. If you're not familiar with that process, it involves the Office of Administrative Hearings. Once that happens, we have an assigned attorney with each case. The arbitration cases usually involve discovery. They involve hiring of experts. They can involve a lot of time and, of course, a lot of money. And so we try to avoid them as much as possible. Arbitrator judgments are binding, as we've already referred to, and so that's a necessary and an important part. It is included in our construction contracts that we will go through binding arbitration if our disputes are unresolved at that point. So we have agreed to, and the contractor has agreed to use binding arbitration as the final step in resolving any outstanding claims when we get to this point.
So the 90 days is in now in addition to the 330 days.
Yes.
So now we're up to 420 days.
Actually, it's in addition to the 240 plus 90, so that gets you to 330. By 240 days, they can file for arbitration. If we're not completed with the claims process, then the contractor can file for arbitration at that point. That's in the Public Contract Code. We didn't make up 240 days. It's in the Public Contract Code. It gives any contractor who works on a public works contract the opportunity to file for arbitration if it's 240 days have elapsed after the time the contract's been accepted. So that's
Again,
what
I mean, I just can't understand why we have to get to 240 days.
we don't in many cases. The last number of years, the number of arbitration cases has dropped dramatically. And I wanted to show you this because it means that the earlier steps are working. The number of cases that actually are filed has dropped significantly over the last 10 years. It continues to do so. That's a good outcome from the earlier steps of dispute resolution and claims resolution. Granted, yes, we do have some cases in arbitration, and I actually have some statistics that I wanted to highlight in a later slide on those numbers. But overall, there's 3 different phases to the claims resolution process. We try to resolve them during construction. If we're not able to, then it moves into the administrative claims process, and if we are not successful there, some projects end up in arbitration. Right now, and I wanted to give you this monthly status because it does include how many cases we have under and how much liability we have exposed. We put together a monthly status report on the construction program. As of June 2nd, we had 657 projects under contract, valued at over $2.7 billion. I'm sorry, $11.4 billion. So far this year, we paid our contractors about $2.7 billion in our monthly progress pay estimates. You'll see in the graph on the right-hand side, we track the cyclic nature of how much we pay our contractors. And it's probably no surprise, but during the summer months, we pay our contractors more than we do during the winter. And that's been a reoccurring cycle each and every year. The orange line represents the largest amount we've ever paid in any construction season. That was in 2012. In that month of September, we paid our contractors more than $400 million on the September progress pay estimate. As you can see, the amount of work going on this winter is a little higher than last. That's for obvious reasons, the drought, and they were able to do more work. But it returns back up as we get into the spring. So we keep track of this to highlight how much we pay our contractors each and every month. So far this fiscal year, we've accepted 430 contracts. That means 430 projects have been finished. We have accepted some but not closed them out. This was the information I wanted to get to, and that is we have 179 projects that are in this phase, in that 240-day period. 179 of them have been completed. The work has been done. The contracts have been accepted. However, the contract has not been closed out because a final estimate has not been made. What's going on during this period is usually things like completing as-builts, and yes, there is some claim resolution that is going on. We have 49 projects currently that have claims remaining or outstanding. So in this 240-day period from the time we've closed the project to the time that we get to the end of that period, we have 179 open projects, but only 49 of them have claims. Those 49 projects that have claims have a value of those claims of about $60 million. So if you step back from the billions of dollars that we complete and accept each and every year, having 49 that have some level of claim, it can be as simple as a bill that is still not paid, an extra work bill. It can be a very extensive claim. Some of them are very elaborate and very complex. But currently we have 49 projects that have some claims on them that remain. The other 130 projects that are in this phase are just doing administrative cleanup, things like as-builts, doing monumentation for surveys, completing right-of-way agreements, doing various tasks so the project cannot be closed out, but the contractor doesn't have any outstanding claims. So the point here is 49 projects have some form of claim during that period, and we work very hard to not use all of the 240 days that are authorized by the Public Contract Code, but we try to take care of them as soon as we can. If we're not able to finish it and we get to arbitration, which was the other phase, we have 19 cases in arbitration that are active right now. Those 19 cases have a potential risk of about $39 million. Again, not desirable to have any cases that have reached this point, but the number has dropped dramatically. We have tried to resolve them, and we have tried to take care of them because this is a very expensive and time-consuming process, and we want to get our contractors completed and paid and move on to the next project. But some cases we just disagree, and we need the litigation to finally resolve the case. And finally, I'm often asked how many people do we have working out in construction. This month we have about 2,500 that are actively out there working, and that's a very consistent figure. The number does not fluctuate dramatically, but we do have loaners that come in and out in order to cover the work. This is a one-page status that I wanted to include because basically we've got, like I said, 49 cases that have some form of claims. Another statistic, this is a performance indicator I thought you might find interesting. We keep these and have for many years on the growth of cost during the claims period. So this is from the time the contract has been accepted and the proposed final estimate goes to the contractor. In that time period, we anticipate some growth in cost because of the claim resolution. What you see up here is we've set ourselves a goal of not having more than 2% cost growth during this period. Right now, the statewide, we're right on track with that. These are the projects that were finished between April of 2013 and March of 2014. It's a running one-year average of projects that are closed out. and we keep track of how much growth we have during this dispute resolution process. And we have a very consistent track record of between 1% and 3% growth during this claims period. Finally, this is probably the most telling information that I think is important for you to have, and that is when we finally send a final estimate to the contractor, we compare that to the original allocation that we have on the project. And right now, those same moving year average of projects that were completed and a final estimate was provided, we finished at 96% of the compared to the final cost versus the original cost. And as you can see, that fluctuates between districts. Those are the projects that each district completed, and those costs were averaged. It's not always green. There are some months where the number goes above the 100%, but that's a moving average, and it's somewhat to be expected that you will have some projects that go over budget and some that are under. But as of these last year, we're at 96%. And I can't remember a year in my 7 years of doing this where we have been in the statewide average has even been close to 100%. It's always been about 98 or 99. So this is an overall assessment of the capital cost growth on a project from the time it begins construction to the time it's completed. And with that, if you have any additional questions, I'd be happy to try to respond to them.
Thank you again for joining us today. And Bobby, why don't we go back to Commissioner Alvarado?
Sure. Have you ever considered or did a pilot program with a 60-day or even a 90-day final binding arbitration?
We want to make sure we give the opportunity for due process. We have to collect the information before we can enter into binding arbitration. Binding arbitration requires discovery. It requires a lot of gathering of facts. It can be what we're trying to do is not rush into a litigation action. We want to try to resolve the dispute administratively before we get there. Yes, it might take a little bit more time, but we don't have to hire any attorneys. We don't have to hire any experts. We don't want to jump to arbitration too quickly. And so we've tried to make that the place of last resort, and that is when we end up in arbitration. And as I pointed out a couple times, we currently have 19 cases that are in that phase. After completing billions of dollars and having an $11 billion program going the last several years, it's a relatively low number. It's manageable. And yes, it does have consequences to some contractors, and it does have consequences to us because we have to pay the attorneys and the experts in order to execute it. But we try to stay out of arbitration, so we're actually trying not to make it too easy to get there. We want to try to resolve it before we get there.
And that may be, granted billions of dollars and not much. We're talking $40 million, but, that might be okay for a general. There's a lot of subs that can't take 240 days. They're just going to give up, or they're going to go broke. But again, next time, if you could have Bijan or one of the directors bring us a list of over the last however many years, the average length of time it takes to settle a case.
To settle a case,
Or close it out.
Close it out in arbitration.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
How it's kind of. I want to know how many times it takes to get. How many times do we take 240 days to resolve a complaint? Or if we're resolving them all in 30 days, yeah, okay, then we're doing very well.
Yeah.
But if we're utilizing on a consistent basis, 120 to 240 days, then you kind of get to wondering, are we just digging our heels in and just waiting them out?
Okay, I can identify how long it's taken during that administrative claims process.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Bobby, thank you. Other questions from commissioners? Commissioner Inman?
Well, I just kind of want to build on where Commissioner Alvarado was, because I would hypothesize if the word in the street is that we could be up to a year to resolve any disagreements or conflicts, I'm going to factor that into my pricing because of the fact that I'm going to make some assumption on what's the likelihood of there being a disagreement. And if I'm going to be in business long term, I'm going to have some methodology so that I don't get strung out and I go out of business. So to do that, and I come from the private sector, I can tell you that if we're working on projects and we know we get paid promptly and we have a mechanism in place to work out our agreements, it's one approach. And then if the standard operating procedure is because of various reasons, it's an elongated process, that's going to go into our pricing, I think. And we had this long discussion earlier. And time is money. So I think that, clearly we're putting a lot of Caltrans resources into something that takes 330 days potentially. So we could be penny wise and pound foolish, I think, sometimes. So it's hard to generalize, but this is a pretty long time frame.
It is, and the only response I have that is of meaning is that it happens on very few projects. We have 650 or more that are going right now. Very few end up in this process, and some of them that have ended up in this, it can take many, many days. Arbitration can average as long as 1,000 days. It's not an easy process to go through. It's basically litigation, and it's because the two parties have disagreed on the merits of the claim. And actually, the alternative before arbitration was developed was to go to court. And court took even longer to try to get a court date and to litigate it. And so binding arbitration was established many years ago to try to expedite the process. It only happens on a very small number of cases, and we try our hardest to avoid it. We really do. And that's why the extent of our development of a claims resolution process, because we don't want to go there. We don't want to be there. We try to avoid it, and we try to take care of these issues while the project is being built. And many do, and most do, but some end up going farther.
Mark, thank you for presenting today and for the information. I want to encourage our colleagues on the Commission, if they have individual questions for you, to follow up, or you and Bijan or Malcolm, that we also do that outside of the hearing setting.
Okay, very good. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. With the permission of our next two presenters, we may lose a commissioner or two before we adjourn. We want to make sure we get to as many of our action items as possible. So with that, we are going to move to item 24. Stephen Mahler,
Yes.
on the TCIF program amendment, and we'll
Yes.
come back to items 22 and 23.
Yes, Commissioners. Item 24 is a amendment of a project into the TCIF program. There are actually two here. One is being withdrawn at the request of the sponsoring agency, so we'll be only acting on the one project, TCI Project 104. TCI Project 106 is withdrawn. Staff recommends that you approve.
There's a motion by Commissioner Madaffer. Is there a second? Commissioner Taglioni, are there questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? That passes. The information items are only if a commissioner would like to pull any of those, or Stephen thinks that there's something that he needs to tell us orally. Stephen?
No, the next 12 items are information reports, and we will not discuss them unless specifically requested by a commissioner.
Okay. Seeing none, thank you for the write-ups. They were very helpful. We're going to the consent calendar. Stephen?
Yes, Commissioners, the next 29 items, 37 through 65, are consent calendar items. There are some changes I need to note. Item 26, 32, and 35, there are slight changes that are identified on the pink change list. We would incorporate those into the consent item. Also need to state that item 44, 47, 49, 50, and 51 are being withdrawn from the consent calendar, and staff is recommending those be postponed to a future commission meeting. With that, staff recommends that you approve the rest of the consent calendar.
There's a motion by Commissioner Taglioni with a second by Commissioner Alvarado. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? We are on to item 66. Stephen?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I need to recuse myself.
We will
My
miss you.
employer, Majestic Realty, owns property adjacent to this project.
Great. If you wouldn't mind stepping out so that we can continue this item. Is it just this one item, Commissioner Inman?
There are two other items.
Why don't we take all the items that she'll be recusing herself while she's out of the room?
Do I need to tell you?
If Stephen knows, he can inform us.
That would be item 66, 82, and 83.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Inman. We'll come get you.
Well, with that, staff recommends that you approve item 66, 82, and 83.
There's a motion by Commissioner Taglioni with a second by Commissioner Alvarado on all three items, 66, 82, and 83. Any questions or feedback from other commissioners? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Those three items pass unanimously, noting that Commissioner Inman is recusing herself, and she's back. Let's move on to 67, please.
Thank you, Commissioners. Items 67 and 68 are shop allocations. I'd like to take both of them together and recommend that you approve them.
Motion by Commissioner Taglioni with a second by Commissioner Madaffer. Any comments, questions? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Item 69. Are we breaking for a commercial?
I'm sorry, I was breaking for a commercial here.
Thank you.
Item 69 is a, let's see, I'm kind of lost.
It's okay. It's a financial allocation.
I'll move it.
Staff recommends approval.
So moved.
A motion by Commissioner Arp with a second by Commissioner Alvarado. Questions? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? On to item 70, please.
Yes, Commissioners, items 70 through 73 are action items. These are requests for allocations for STIP projects, and staff recommends your approval of all four of those items.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Taglioni with a second by Commissioner Inman. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? That passes. Item 74, please.
Yes, Commissioners, items 74 through 77 are also allocations for STIP projects. These are advance allocations for projects that are programmed in 14-15. I would just want to mention that under item 75, project number 1 has been withdrawn, will be deferred to a future meeting. And with that change, staff recommends your approval of these four items.
Motion by Commissioner Taglioni with a second by Commissioner Alvarado. Questions? Seeing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? On to item 78.
Commissioners, items 78 through 80 are requests for supplemental funds. 78 and 79 are to close out contracts, and 80 is a post-fact extension. Staff will be recommending approval. I'd be happy to give individual presentations on all of them if you wish. Otherwise, I recommend approval.
Motion by Commissioner Taglioni with a second by Commissioner Alvarado. Discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Item 81.
Yes, Commissioners, item 81 is an allocation of $12 million to what I refer to as the Baby Tehachapi project. This one has finally arrived and is ready for an allocation, and staff recommends that you allocate the project.
So moved.
There's a motion by Commissioner Inman with a second by Commissioner Madaffer. Any questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Item 82, please.
We did that.
Okay, we did. You're right. Good job. Item 84.
Item 84 is a request for $500,000 shop allocation for the Bay Bridge Maintenance Warehouse Project. Staff recommends your approval.
Motion by Commissioner Taglioni with a second by Commissioner Madaffer. Questions? Seeing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions. Item 85, please.
Commissioners, item 85 is an allocation for 3 HRCSA projects. Staff recommends your approval.
Motion by Commissioner Taglioni. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Alvarado. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That passes unanimously. Item 86.
Yes, Commissioners, this item is an information item. It's an update on the use of the 2013-14 local assistance lump sum allocation. Sub-allocations through the second quarter of the federal fiscal year total 55% of the amount allocated to the department through March. Slightly misleading since we did the second half of the allocation in May. But basically they're online. They're doing a little bit better than last year on obligating these funds. The department does have a short presentation on this, on the local assistance programs, and you may decide you want to hold that till the end of the meeting.
How short is short, Department?
5 minutes, he says.
If you'd said 2, you'd be there. We'll hold it to the end. Thank you for your patience.
Okay, and now
So
we
we're
can
gonna
move
go
on
on
to
can we go on to 87?
Yes.
Great.
Commissioners, this is the action item, and this is the request for the state funds for the 2014-15 local assistance lump sum. And this request is consistent with prior years. We do the allocation of the state funds in June so that they can begin getting those monies out the door in July. In particular, they do the Freeway Service Patrol program almost immediately. Staff recommends that you allocate these state funds.
Motion by Commissioner Taglioni with a second by Commissioner Alvarado. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? That passes unanimously. Item 88. Stephen, how long is the presentation?
There's no presentation.
I like that length.
Yes.
Good.
Actually, item 88 and 89 deal with the lump sum allocation for the department. Item 88 is the report on this year's allocation. I've gone through the report with the department. They've actually underspent their post-certification category, which is, I'm glad to see that. So they saved about $23 million, goes back in the pot. And the next item, 89, is their request for next year's allocation. They're requesting $163 million for right-of-way activities. Staff recommends that you approve that allocation.
Motion by Commissioner Taglioni with a second by Commissioner Medaffer. Questions? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? That passes unanimously. Juan, items 90 and 91.
Thank you, Commissioners. 90 is the information item, is the preliminary closeout report for the 13-14 fiscal year. And I'd like to note that the Commission approved the allocation of $70,365,000 for the capital funding on the program. And that delivery, when is reported, the final report is submitted at the October meeting, will show that that amount has been reduced by close to $13 million because they needed additional funding for support. And as I said, they'll have the final report at the October meeting. Item 91 is the request for allocation for the fiscal year 14-15 minor lump sum. And in the information item, the total program is $150 million. The Commission does not allocate the support costs for the SHOP projects. Therefore, the request for allocation for capital funding is $81,926,000. Staff recommends your approval of the lump sum for the 14-15 year.
There's a motion by Commissioner Taglioni, second by Commissioner Alvarado. Questions? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you, Juan. Item 92.
Commissioners, item 92 is a request for allocation for a STIP transit project. It's an advance allocation for the Muni's Central Subway project in San Francisco. It's $12,498,000. Staff recommends your approval.
Okay, that was pretty quick, but I'm going with Commissioner Medaffer with the motion and Commissioner Taglioni with the second. Questions? Seeing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? That passes. 93.
Thank you. Commissioners, items 93, excuse me, let me take that separately. Item 93 is a time extension request for local STIP projects, and there are several changes to the spreadsheet that was provided to you, and you actually should have a pink copy that notes one of the changes. That the other two changes are on projects 5 and 6. Staff was originally recommending to deny those requests. After meeting with the agency representatives who are here at the meeting, we're going to change our recommendation to 8 months for both projects 5 and 6. And on the other change that should be noted on the pink sheet is item 7. We're recommending the 20 months for that project. So other than those changes for that item, staff recommends you approve based on the spreadsheet provided to you.
We have 2 speaker cards, and I'm not sure if these are captured by what you have just mentioned. It doesn't look like they would be. Well, one of them may be. Skylar Lipsky, if of the City of Willows, if your concerns or comments have been captured with what Juan has just told us about items 5 and 6, could you let us know that?
They have, Chair.
Great. Good. Okay. That's good. We like happy customers. The other one, speaker request, is from the City of Capitola, and that's Stephen, is it Jesberg?
Good afternoon. Stephen Jesberg, Public Works Director of the City of Capitola. I'm here on item 11 to request approval of the extension request. This is a very important project, sidewalk project that serves a large residential area to our main commercial area, filling in key gaps, and it also serves a middle school in the city. The project's been delayed. This STIP funding is for construction funding, and the local funding that was paying for the preliminary engineering design has been delayed due to the slow economy. City of Capitola is dependent on sales tax for its funding for capital improvement projects. I could go into more detail, but I just wanted to put in a personal request for the extension to be.
We'll just note that you fought long and hard to get your approval. Just tell your boss that. Yeah.
And Mr. Chair, if I could just ask, so that the staff agrees with the 11 months?
Our staff is not recommending the 11 months.
You're recommending 8 on this one?
No. I'm recommending denial of the request.
For the one that was just
Wait a minute.
Capitola.
On number 11, you were recommending denial?
That's correct.
Get back up here and fight for it.
Okay, because I was a little confused. I was following along with the items that you indicated.
Oh, he took the 8 months.
You were going to 8 months. Can you repeat those again?
Yes.
Which ones were you recommending denial?
Yeah, it's as noted on the pink copy of the spreadsheet. It's that project 11. I'm recommending deny on there, and the one that was 8 months are projects 5 and 6, which on your spreadsheet show deny.
Right.
But I'm recommending 8 months for both of those.
Okay, but on project number 11, you're recommending a complete denial of any extension.
That's correct.
Why?
Basically, the bottom line is that there was a question as to whether the project's still fully funded. Their expected revenues have not been coming in as expected, and the time it took them to get their PA&D ready, their environmental documentation ready, it's lengthy. There was really no good explanation as to why the delay in requesting allocation for the construction.
Let me just ask the Public Works Director then, are you able to do this within an 8-month extension period?
We believe so. We are fully funded as of July 1st.
Yeah, I would make the motion to approve it with the amendment of adding an 8-month extension for item 11.
There's a motion. Is there a second? There's a motion and a second. Before we take a vote, Juan, did you want to weigh in again?
No, I would just say staff would change its recommendation to 8 months.
Juan, thank you for your flexibility. Sir, thank you for driving all the way to Sacramento. I wouldn't walk away. We haven't voted yet. You never know. Any other comments from the commission?
Now I make my comment.
Oh, please. Commissioner Art?
No, that was it. I'm glad he got it.
Excellent. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Thank you, sir.
Now I'll say thank you.
Okay. And thank you, Commissioner Medaffer, for working to find common ground on that. Is there anything else on item 93 that you need?
No, that's it. Staff recommends your approval.
Okay, is there a motion for all the items on 93? Yes, from Commissioner Taglioni. Is there a second? There's a second by Commissioner Medaffer. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That is approved. Item 94.
Okay, Commissioners, items 94 through 100 are the remaining time extension items on the agenda. And staff, just like to note that item 95 has been withdrawn. That project has been awarded. And with that change, staff recommends that you approve items 94 through 100 based on the recommendations in the spreadsheet.
There's a motion by Commissioner Taglioni. Is there a second?
Yes.
Second by Commissioner Alvarado. Questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Excellent. Colleagues, thank you for helping us to get to all the action items. We have 3 information items that we would like to return to, and we thank those people again for their patience. Those items are 22, 23, and 86. Why don't we start with 22 on the 2015 Facilities Infrastructures Plan? Stephen Muller.
Yes, Commissioners. The Department has produced its 2015 Facilities Plan. What you really don't have any action on it. This is an information item to you. What staff noted in the plan is kind of strange. It's a 5-year plan, and it has 0 things in it, so it's a plan with no plan in it. But there are indications in the plan that there are lots of needs out there. The department has maintenance stations and other facilities that are old, and there are indications that there are violations of OSHA rules, environmental rules, and everything else. So it's kind of strange to us that these things are not working their way into the plan. And also on top of, and those needs, just on those pieces are about $300 million worth. Needs of the department's office buildings are not addressed at all, and some of the office buildings are 50 to 60-year-old buildings that also have all kinds of needs. So one thing I would recommend is that the department start at least building a plan that builds in some of these needs over time. And otherwise, Glenn Yee is here to make the presentation on the 5-year facilities plan.
Glenn, how many minutes do you need for each year of your 5-year plan?
I would probably say maybe probably within 3 or 4 minutes.
Okay, if you stay within 3 or 4, there will be valuable prize for you at the end.
Okay. Anyway, I'm Glenn Yee. I'm the Division Chief for Business Facilities and Security. I thank you for your interest since I haven't done this presentation for about 5 years. So if I sound rusty, I am rusty. My jurisdiction is over office facilities. The other part, transportation-related facilities, is Steve Takagawa, who's behind me. You know, I would like to think that I'm better looking, but I know that I'm taller than he is. So I'm going to enlighten you very quickly. The Facility Infrastructure Plan is a document that identifies the department's existing facilities. It's an infrastructure deficiencies as well as net need, and also shows the projects that we are projecting. The next slide is that. So why do we have to do it? The way we do it is because the governor is required to do an annual 5-year capital outlay infrastructure plan. It's because of Assembly Bill 1473, and all state entities have to actually do it. Next slide is the 2015 basically is a combination of the 10-year SHOP as well as a 4-year SHOP, and as also the requirements of the budget letter. That being said, pictorially, basically it's just a combination of all those plans together. So in essence, indirectly, you all basically approved it already. The facility plan consists of basically 4 chapters. Really quickly, the overview, off facility, transportation-related facilities, and energy conversation. All I'm doing for time. So that being said, basically, like Stephen said, that we're not asking for any funding. And the reason why is that nothing's programmed in the SHOP at this point in time. Is due to limited availability of resources of the SHOP. But I could assure you that that the department basically creates safe working environment for our employees. If we do have a citation, either a State Fire Marshal or a Cal OSHA, I have my own budget about $1 million. Ms. Takela has a budget about $5 million to rectify any issues. So in fact, when I get to my office facilities, which is the next slide, in regards with the District 4, it was a fire life safety issue. There was no alarm system. It was a $7 million job. The shop actually funded on an emergency basis. I like to actually focus on the District 1 project. We're actually doing an upgrade to that building. What's problematic is that it's a $10 million project. It's managed by Department of General Services. They're already up to close to $900,000 in overage. Hopefully we're going to basically entertain you in August in regards to basically approving another $700,000 that Department of General Services is asking for, which is over our G12 cap. Let's see. In regards to the transportation-related facilities, Stephen's correct, is that we have no projects that are actually dedicated for the cause, but there are unprogrammed needs of about $300 million. That being said, my favorite slide is actually the last one. The environment is important to all of us. In fact, even the President of the United States. How do I know this? Is that recently my daughter graduated from University of California, Irvine. At the commencement ceremony, President Obama actually gave a speech on climate control or climate action, as well as the the governor is very proactive in resource conservations, because in essence he enacted the drought state of emergency, the 2 executive orders on green building, and executive order on zero emission vehicles. But in regards to the department, we're very proactive in regards to that. We follow the LEED standards. In fact, we have a rest area that actually went platinum. We've been buying a lot of zero emission vehicles. We're very proactive in regards to conservations, and in fact we're actually going to actually do a 3P or P3 at the Inland Empire TMC to actually do a 1 megawatt solar farm behind the structure. And that's it. Did I make 4 minutes?
4 minutes, 15 seconds, and .22. You did pretty darn well. So, Glenn, thank you. Are there questions of our colleagues? Okay, Glenn, before you leave, I'm a man of my word. You get your very own Silicon Valley Turkey Trot Racing shirt. We're coming pretty darn close to time. How good of a catch are you?
If you give it to me, I can. How good of a...
You got to learn to dive for the pass. Sacrifice your body for it.
That's our chair's definition of a prize. If you want some cookies, there's some around here somewhere.
And there are cookies, too, and they're darn good. David Maxwell, thank you again. With that, thank you. If there are no comments from commissioners or questions, then we're moving on to 23, the Willits Bypass Project Update. Stephen Mahler?
Yes, commissioners, this is an update on the Willits Bypass. It's about 40% completed. And Charlie Fielder, District 1 Director, is here to give you an update on the project.
Great. How much time do you need?
Yeah, good afternoon. I'm Charlie Fielder. I'm the Caltrans District 1 Director for
Charlie, you got to play along. How much time do you need?
Well, I had about a 10-minute presentation, but I'm going to boil it down to 8.
Ooh, we like that.
How about
okay,
5?
You've got your 8 minutes.
Okay. Real quick, many of you are very familiar with this very important project, but for some of you that aren't, I'll just give a quick overview and background on this. We're here based on a request from the CTC from last November. The project consists of a 4-lane facility with full access control and grade separation. It reduces delays, improves safety, achieves a minimal level of service C for interregional traffic through the 20-year design life. This is along Route 101 in Mendocino County. It eliminates the only remaining signalized intersection on Route 101 between San Francisco and Eureka. It's joint funded using regional shares and interregional shares. Our partner, MCOG, Phil Dow, is here with us today. The project was split at the time of vote in March 2012 into 5 separate projects. The first one is the first phase, which is 2 lanes of the 4-lane bypass. We have 2 relinquishment projects and 2 mitigation projects. The It has a number of permits, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers 404 permit. We have a state North Coast Regional Water Board 401 certification, and then Cal Fish and Wildlife 1602 and 2081. We also have extensive mitigation that was developed for this project and a MMP, which is a mitigation monitoring plan, one for the state agencies and one for the feds. Construction status, went out to bid in 2012, had a successful bid opening, awarded the project, the bypass project, to Flatiron De Silva Gates. It's a joint venture. Active construction started in February 2013. There were some delays in getting that work started that pushed us into the nesting bird season. We're in the second season right now. The footprint of the alignment is clearly there. I have some pictures that you'll be able to see later in the presentation. The work's approximately 40% complete. We've really made some very good progress on it. We were currently on schedule to be completed December 2016. Now I'm just going to give you a quick overview of some of the major issues and risk. I think it's pretty well known that there is some opposition from a small vocal minority in the Mendocino County area. Last year, the group had brought protesters from outside of the area, primarily the Bay Area, that actually caused significant delays to the work by trespassing, tree sitting, locking themselves to construction equipment, using human barriers and such. It resulted in an increase in security costs using CHP on site, as well as delay costs to the contractor. This year we haven't seen that type of activity. In fact, it pretty much died down towards the end of last year. You can see some of the costs due to these delays amounted about $7.3 million. Some of these other costs that we had that I had mentioned due to the late start, we had to do bird surveys. We also elected to do some advanced mitigation work, which I'll get into later in the slides. And there was some additional archaeological sites that were discovered out in that area. The only other issue out there is borrowing import material for the project to finish the north end of the project embankment. We have one site, the Oil Well Hill site, that's currently cleared, but the a better site that the contractor came up with from an old abandoned mill site, the Mendocino Forest Products site, was identified, and we're working with agencies to get clearance on that, and we're just about there. Okay. I mentioned once already that the other projects, aside from the construction project, is the relinquishment. There's two in that category for the downtown 101 and then the intersection of Sherwood Road. And then the mitigation projects is Fish Passage north of the valley at Ryan Creek, and then the more significant mitigation project is the wetland mitigation. There we go. And this is where my most current issue is, that I'll try to be brief but also give you a good idea of what we're dealing with. I did mention that we have two MMPs. The state MMP was updated and finalized here last month, or actually at the beginning of this month. And the Army Corps of Engineers has put us on notification that they want to update their MMP as well. And part of that issue is due to the delay in start of the mitigation work, about a 6-month delay on that. The CTC did allocate funding back in May of 2013. We went to bid with the main mitigation project, that's the wetland creation. The bids came over significantly over the engineer's estimate. Engineer's estimate was $13.1 million. The bids came in at $39.3 million. After further evaluation, we rejected the bids and came up with another strategy. We came to the commission in December 2013. You granted a 20-month extension on that. As I said, The mitigation was delayed, so we went ahead and took a portion of that work under change order and started doing it under the existing construction contract. And that is putting in exclusionary fencings and other measures that were important to further mitigation work. However, it was about a 6-month delay in getting that started. The Army Corps of Engineers has just last Friday issued a conditional suspension to our 404 Clean Water Act permit for work within their jurisdictional areas. So we've ceased activity in that area. I did meet with the Lieutenant Colonel yesterday on this. I have another follow-up meeting with the Director, Lieutenant Colonel, and their management tomorrow morning to see what we can do to get that work going. We are continuing to work right now on that project, but in areas that are not within the jurisdictional area. So it's it's a significant setback for us at this point. Talked about breaking the project into smaller contracts. This is our mitigation work. We put some of that under the contract change order. We also initiated 2 service contracts. One is, I believe, awarded. We have the other one that's in the award period to collect seeds and then propagate the plants. And then the cattle exclusion fencing and the water supply, that's being done under the change order work. And then finally, the project is still on schedule, but if we're unable to resume work here quickly in the jurisdictional areas of the Army Corps of Engineers, then we will be at risk of losing up to a year of work. So there's a lot of risk involved right now in trying to address the Army Corps of Engineers' concerns. There will be additional mitigation credits that they'll be assessing us that we'll have to comply with by law, but what we need is to be able to get them to lift their suspension, and that's something we're working diligently on achieving right now. As far as the cost increases that we have experienced to date, we have utilized the G12 funds available, $13.3 million. And that has covered the unforeseen costs, the CHP expenses, and the additional mitigation that we're incorporating in the project right now. Working with our stakeholders to try to get through this difficult period. Here's a real quick pictures. That's the alignment overview over the valley. You can see the footprint is quite established in the valley, and you can also note that it's avoiding the majority of the wetlands within the valley and hugging the community, the developed community of Willits. That's the southern interchange. The embankment's completed. We're doing the footing work on that right now, as well as the fish passage work through the creeks in that area. That's more of the southern interchange. It's a retaining wall. This is some of the earthwork. This is a floodway viaduct. It's about a little over a mile long. It's a 2-lane viaduct for the first phase of the project. And it's got a lot of people out there working. This part has not been suspended. We are currently getting clarification from the Corps of Engineers to make sure that this was not included in that suspension. This is the north interchange, the area that probably had the most wetland impacts. This is an area of where there is still more work to be completed as far as the embankment goes. And that's it.
What a question.
Any questions?
Great. Charlie, thank you. Questions from the Commission?
So what's the cause of the suspension of the permit?
The cause is that we are out of compliance with the 404 permit that was issued to us. The understanding that the Corps had was that the mitigation would be occurring concurrently with the construction, and they issued a news release today that I can have shared with you, but their position, the bottom line is, the project is progressing along it too well compared to the mitigation, meaning the wetlands have been impacted and yet they are not being created in a timely manner. So there's a 6-month delay due to getting our work out and then having an unsuccessful bid opening, and trying to recoup some of that loss by incorporating it in the existing contract. So until we can bring to their satisfaction that we update our schedule, we agree to their additional mitigation credits, and we show that we are back in compliance, which they are committed to working with us and achieving, we have the suspension.
So the mitigation work is identified, you know what you have to do, you're just not getting it done fast enough?
Correct. If it was a matter of just going out there and digging a hole and filling it with water, we'd be good to go. But there's certain plant species that are specified that need to be placed once you excavate that hole so that you don't just get invasive species plants come in there. So we're collecting the seeds and propagating plants, which we're doing right now, and these plants would be ready for planting, I imagine, by the end of this season. Technically, if we were able to get plants and we could excavate some of these holes, we could get that mitigation accelerated. But right now, the earthwork contract that is funded and ready to go out the contract is, I think the PS&E is due, it's my project manager, in a couple of months, August. And we should have that project awarded by January 2015. And that's, if we're able to take some of that work and advance it under the existing contract, we'll do that as well.
Okay, I'm a little bit, so, okay. Is the contract for the mitigation a different contractor, or is it the same contractor?
Charlie, isn't the mitigation project the one that was delayed and we needed to go back and redo the bids, and so that caused part of the delay in getting us started on this?
We had to cancel those bids because there were problems with the package that was put together that resulted in significantly higher bids than what were expected. Thanks to the bidders, we were able to identify some of those issues. We had, I think, only 2 bid inquiries, 2 or 3. It was much too large of a contract, and the bonding period was much too long, 10 years, for most contractors to be able to bid on it. We've able to break that down to where the largest portion, I believe, is a $5 million contract and 5 years bonding period. So we've got it into a more manageable size. Right now, we don't need additional funding as we start letting these contracts out, but depending how the bids come in, we'll let you know.
Additional questions, Commissioner Arp?
I don't know what we can do.
Okay. Other comments or questions? Phil Dow, you've been working on this since you were in junior high. Is there anything that you wanted to add? Phil just wants the shirt.
Phil Dowd, Mendocino Council of Governments. It's only been 34 years. The only thing I would add is I'm obviously disappointed in the Army Corps of Engineers action, but I have been giving regular reports to my board so they'll know what's going on. Mauricio here gives me a monthly report. I include it in the agenda, and so they'll be aware of what's coming forward in the future. And all I can say is the Mendocino Council of Governments, the Board of Supervisors, and the City of Willits are still committed to this project, I mean.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is a process after 34 years, yes.
Yeah. Phil, don't go away.
So I just want to be assured, we're talking about delays here. You're not talking about anything that will risk the completion of this project, are we?
As far as I'm concerned, no. Delays occur to a number of projects. The delay we're talking about is imposed by a third party. As you know, it was recently reported, 40% of the project is complete. I mean, the contractor's getting it done real quick. And, I think that there's the Army Corps of Engineers is looking at this from their perspective is, well, are they really going to catch up with the mitigation? So, I mean, that's their concern. And we had, as Charlie identified, what was originally intended is to go out and seed a lot of area as far as mitigation and creating wetlands. And it's kind of a novel way of doing it, and the way it was packaged originally was just too large, not enough bidders, and the cost came in too high, and now it takes a long time to repackage this and go out and try it again and try to get bids that were within the scope of what we had envisioned for the environmental package. And now the Corps of Engineers is looking at, I'm guessing, well, this thing is proceeding pretty rapidly, and we don't see a whole lot of progress going on as far as creating those wetlands that you agreed to do under the mitigation monitoring plan. It's kind of a catch-22. We're getting too much done.
Phil, thank you for your patience in working on this for 34 years. Charlie, thank you for the update. Charlie, was there anything else you wanted to add before we find out how good of a catch you are?
All I was going to say is that we're going to be working throughout the summer. If there are commissioners that are interested in coming out to the site, be happy to host you on a tour. I'm also available to meet with individual commissioners that I know have a lot of interest in this, and I can probably brief you on a lot more detail.
Great.
I'll take you up on that. I would be really happy to see some plants growing, but anyway, I will take you up on that.
Okay, sir.
Now, wait, is this Humboldt County?
Mendocino.
Okay, I just was wondering what kind of plants you were going to be planting out there.
I'm not that picky at this point.
I think it's semaphore grass is what it is.
Thank you all for your patience. We do have one more item. It's item 86, and we are back to Laurel to tee up this item, please, on the local assistance lump sum allocation.
Yes, the Commissioner's John Houle is here to give us a short presentation about the local assistance programs.
Great. John, thank you for your patience. We appreciate it. I seem to recall you were needing about 5 minutes.
All right. As my first time attending one of these meetings, I was prepared to make this presentation. If this is something you are interested in skipping, we can do that. If you want,
you're on stage. You've got
all
5.
Right. Go for it. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to try to make this even more abbreviated. Let me start by just introducing myself. My name is John Houle, and I'm an office chief with Local Assistance. I'm here on behalf of my boss, who is the division chief of Local Assistance, Ray Zhang. If I get the next slide, we're going to talk about. I'm going to just talk about 2 things primarily, the federal lump sum allocation, the state lump sum allocation. I'm going to do it really quick. Total overview, using a ton of acronyms. Let me know if you need any definitions for those acronyms. Our federal lump sum allocation consists of a number of programs, primarily the ones you have in front of you here. The National Highway Performance Program allocated $230 million. The NHPP funds locally administered bridge projects on the NHS, the National Highway System, which means primarily replacement, rehab, preservation, protection of bridges. Second program is Surface Transportation Program, $557 million. Preserves and improves the performance of on any federal aid highways, also off-system bridges, tunnel projects on any public road, pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure, transit capital projects, to name a few. The annual CMAQ, next slide. The CMAQ program provides about $467 million. The intent of this program is to fund projects and efforts that reduce congestion and improve air quality for areas that do not meet national air quality standards. The funds are apportioned according to a formula based on population and severity of pollution in ozone and carbon monoxide areas. The next program is HSIP, our safety program. Annual allocation of about $74 million, and its purpose is to achieve a significant reduction in serious injuries on all public roads and highways. Finally, our discretionary programs, basically $252 million plus for 3 main programs: demonstration, discretionary, and emergency relief. So that's the federal lump sum allocation very quickly. The state lump sum allocation very quickly is First item, STP match and exchange. It's an allocation of about $58 million, and it allows us to exchange funds for smaller smaller regions and counties, exchange their federal apportionment for state cash. The reason for this program is basically efficiency, allowing the local agencies to do projects with the state cash that doesn't carry some of the restrictions that federal funds do. These are also done on a formula basis. We have a bridge inspection allocation of just under $1 million. That's for bridge inspections and scour evaluation. We have railroad grade separations of $15 million. That funds the completion of high priority grade separations and railroad crossings. Safety improvements. The railroad grade crossing maintenance allocation of about $2 million essentially does what it says. It funds the protection of existing grade crossings. And the miscellaneous unassigned local programs, $3.3 million is primarily our educational programs for local agencies, our local partners. There's also a match for federal seismic retrofit projects within that. The Freeway Service Patrol, we've got one left. Freeway Service Patrol has an annual allocation of about $25.5 million, and it provides emergency roadside assistance service and improves safety for stranded motorists. It helps reduce traffic congestion during peak hours and improves traffic flow. With that, the Commission does have the responsibility for oversight of these funds, but we also want to note that our Division of Local Assistance, working with our local partners, we have delivered 100% of the available federal funds for 14 years running now, and there's absolutely no way we're going to stop at 14. I hesitate to put 15 in the bank, but yeah, I'll put 15 in the bank. The last slide is the scariest one for me. Any questions?
John, well done.
4 minutes and 32 seconds.
All right, all right.
Sorry, questions of John from the Commission? Fran?
No, for John. I'm queuing up for the next.
Okay, great.
All right, thank you.
Thank John.
Okay, I do play softball. Bring it. All right, nice.
And if you have racing shirt envy, I have 5 shirts left. Just see me after the meeting. Is there, before we adjourn in memory of Caroline Rodman, are there any other comments? Commissioner Inman.
I just wanted to make a request of Caltrans, and I mentioned this to Norma. The Water Quality State Water Board issued their 311-page draft trash policy on June 10th, and there's going to be one public hearing, and then they expect to adopt it in the fall. So I would like for our transportation partners to take a look and come back to us with an estimate of what kind of fiscal impact that might have for all of us in terms of compliance, because I think we need to factor that in, or we may
Commissioner
have...
Inman, we have a presentation to the Commission planned for August on stormwater, and we will wrap this item into that presentation.
Great. Are there any other closing comments from Commissioner colleagues or staff? Well, with a reminder that we should all cherish every day, we are going to adjourn today's Commission hearing in memory of Caroline Rodman of T.Y. Lynn. And we would ask if staff could please send a letter to Caroline's family that we have done so. So cherish every moment. Hug your family. And with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.